let's just come in and I'm going to select the points. I'm going to select the ones right at the top. Anything that we can't really see, I'm going to kind of pull it up so it's right outside of where that sphere sort of intersects with the head. Kind of right in there. Let's take these ones down here, pull them down a little bit, and we'll do the same thing down here at the bottom. Just kind of pull this down just a little so they're kind of right outside there. Here we can kind of pull these in a little bit. And just want to make sure I don't have anything else selected. There we go. Kind of pull those in a bit. Okay, let's do the same thing up here. I kind of pull these in and then also maybe towards that intersection. It'll do the same thing here. So get so that kind of rim of faces that we have around there, we can sort of pull those out. Okay, so now let's select those polygons. So let's select this whole sort of row here, all the way around. Okay, and now let's do an extrude on those. So do an extrude, and I'm just going to kind of pull those out a little bit. All right, so now I'm just going to use this as sort of the lids. So let's take these. I'm just going to pull them down so they're right around the outside of the eye. And if you want to, you can turn on your subdiv to kind of just give you a little bit better idea. So we're just kind of getting it so it's wrapped a little bit tighter around the surface. So it's already pretty close to where we want it to be. Kind of pull this in, and let's actually make a little bit more of like an angle here to where it comes to kind of a point. Can kind of turn that off. Okay, so now we can begin to kind of figure out, do I want it to come a little bit further? We can kind of tighten up the edges. So let's actually do that towards the end. I'm going to come in and let's use our knife to add a little bit more detail right in there so we can start to come in and maybe take those out a little bit further. So now we have another line in there where we can kind of bring this out and down. So it kind of starts to curve down and around the eye versus just being right around the edge. Let's do the same thing on the bottom. Let's kind of pull this out and up just so it kind of wraps around. And you can see how this would be really, really difficult if we didn't have a piece of eye geometry in there. We'd be able to, move these points around, but we wouldn't know where they're supposed to go. Okay, now if you want to add a little bit more detail in here, we can come in and let's use our knife. We can kind of bring this in and let's go to a loop selection. And oh, I know what's wrong. Go to loop selection and let's turn off boundary loop. And we can just start to create a little bit of, more detail here as far as like wrinkles and things. So we can do the same thing here. Again, selecting the loop and maybe scaling it down just a little bit. And then to sharpen up the edges, we can use our knife. Again, you can kind of preview what that looks like. And we can turn off our lines and kind of get a better idea. So you can see how this is really still pretty rounded off. Okay, and so you could come in here with your knife And you remember, if you want to sharpen it up, we just add more lines here. So let me select my cube, knife, and let's come in and add a loop that goes across here and here. And that'll serve to sharpen up those corners and give you a little bit more of like an eyelid shape. Now you might have to move it in towards the face a little bit more. Okay, so now we can come in and grab points, like for instance here. We could come in and grab those points and start to move those in, just to make this line a little bit nicer. And then anywhere you see where it's kind of off of the surface, you can come in and just make sure that it's right tight up against there. Same thing back here. And you can see how this is kind of sticking off of the surface. Let's make sure we pull that back in towards the eye. Okay, and that gives us this sort of lizard-like eye coming off of the side. This eyelid that kind of wraps around the eye and holds it into the surface of the head. If you want to, you can come in and kind of smooth out you know, the areas back here a little bit if you need to. But you are going to have, I mean, it's coming right off of the head, so it's not going to be integrated super cleanly into the rest of there. But if you wanted to use like the brush, you could come in there and do that. And because we're using symmetry, it's already done it on the other side. If you want to, you know, move the eye over there too, we'll just call this eye left, and then we'll add a new symmetry object. Drop the eye underneath there, and that gives you your other eye on the other side. Okay, and then you can come in and modify this. I think I definitely want to, let's use the brush here. So use the brush, and I want to use, let's use smear. And I'm just going to kind of pull this whole part of the head in a little bit to give it kind of a little bit more shape. And let me, that's the strength, there we go. I'll kind of pull this in a little bit. Okay, so something like that for the eye. And then in the next lesson, let's come in and add a little bit more detail to this. So for the head, so we can add a little bit more detail up here across the front of the mouth and maybe down at the chin. And then we